Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we are going to be talking about Howling Banshees, and I'm with Dead of Night once again to talk about this very underutilized unit and trying to find out if there's actually a purpose for them, because a lot of people think they're pretty much trash. And this is coming from being one of the best units in the beginning of the edition, right? Well, not the beginning, excuse me, the beginning of last edition when we got our codex. It was like they would just kill anything, dreadnoughts, rhinos. I mean, I've even
The
charged.
Exarch. Oh my.
Oh, absolutely. The thing would just solo things. Like anything without a damage gate would be destroyed in ninth edition. But in 10th edition, they got severely hit by a bunch of nerfs. Not only to the core rules of combat, but also just the fight's first ability doesn't work exactly like it used to. They don't hit as hard as they used to. And they really didn't get that much cheaper. I mean, I was paying 115 points for a unit of Banshees in ninth, and I'm paying 85 now, and they really
Right.
don't hit anywhere close to as hard.
Not even remotely, I don't think.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of begs the question, right? Like, how do you use Howling Banshees now? Because they're still cool. They're new models, and us Eldar players, we know the value of new sculpts. We're sitting around here with a bunch of old shit. I mean, warp spiders falling over on their head every time you try to move them around the battlefield.
Facts.
Exactly. Like I know like my old warp spider's like full of chips and just stuff everywhere. Like I've stopped even trying to like paint over the chip marks because it's just every single game I feel them and like it's almost like I don't even want to use them anymore. Like I'd rather use cardboard instead of them, you know what I mean? But,
Right.
I mean, they're cool. They're a cool unit. Howling Banshees are
I,
pretty
I think
awesome.
I think there's some good news here though, Proxy. They're only 85 points. It's only 85. It's not
They're
bad.
pretty cheap, right? I mean, they're not like, I mean, yeah, 85 looks like, you know, same as fire dragons, and look what fire dragons can do, right? But how can we use
True.
howling banshees? Like, what are some of the things we can do to kind of get the use out of them that they deserve?
The five pack, right? They're
Hmm.
so weak that it's hard to really use them as a tar pit by themselves, right?
Yeah,
Well, I feel like we have to find other ways to use them.
yeah, we
Like
have
the
to.
the screen only lasts so long with the
Right.
five pack. They'll probably just die.
Yeah, so you can't really just expect to throw them out there into something tough because they're going to fail to kill it, and then they're just going to get mowed down. Like if you're going against Black Templars and you think that a 5 Howling Banshee unit can, go into, what is it, Primaris Sword Brethren or something like that, like you have another thing coming.
Right.
you know? Oh man, I remember back in the day, just a quick story. I remember back in the day when I used to play in 4th edition. Howling Banshees were super scary and a lot of people feared them, like in the local game store. So I brought a unit, I would always bring a unit of 10 and a Wave Serpent, right? And there was this guy who was a Black Templar main. He loved Black Templars, like, so he had his unit of 10 Sword Brethren in a Rhino with the Emperor's Champion.
Oh
And that
yeah.
was his like prized unit. And I remember the unit coming out, charging into Guardians, wiping out the Guardians, and then like just basically overrunning right there and right in front of the Wave Serpent. And he was like, bring it on, dude, I'm ready. I was like, all right. He didn't know it was getting out of the Wave Serpent, and I brought up the Howling Banshees, and he didn't know what Howling Banshees did. And he was like, "Oh, okay, I think I've
Oh
heard of these
no.
guys." Like, but I could tell he was bluffing because if he had heard of them, he would be shitting his pants. So I moved him into combat, and he's like, "Okay, I'm sure you strike first, right? Because you're Eldar." And I'm like, "Yeah, I strike at initiative 10." Because back then, Banshees had
Yeah, yeah.
initiative 10. So
I always
they,
forget about the initiative back then.
oh yeah, dude, initiative worked way different
Yeah,
back then. Like
yeah.
Eldar basically always struck first, whether they were charged or they charged you, they struck first. But he's letting me roll my dice. I'm like I'm weapon skill 4, so I'm hitting him on 4s. The Exarch's hitting on 3s because she's a little bit higher. And then I roll to wound, and I had cast Doom on his unit, so back then it allowed you to reroll wounds, kind of like ninth edition. And I'm rolling the wounds. I'm like, okay, that's gonna be 10 saves. And I thought he had an invul save or something like that. And he was like, oh, armor? I was like, no, invul. He was like, well, they don't have invul saves. I was
Oh
like,
no.
oh, they're dead, dude. They're all power weapons. He was like, "What?" And back then, dude, like for a whole
Yeah.
unit to have power weapons was like fucking unheard of, dude. Like it's not like nowadays where you have a bunch of different units with power weapons because they're weak sauce pretty much. They're just like AP -2. Nah, dude, they ignored all armor. Like even Terminators had to fear this. And
Yeah, Banshees go through
just picked him up.
phases. They go through phases.
Yeah, dude. He just had to pick up every single model he had, man. His nine, I think he had actually nine sword brethren, if I'm not mistaken, but just had to pick them all up.
So like I feel like when they're mounted currently, we lose kind of our on foot ability. Our advance and charge isn't really as
Yeah.
used if we're mounted up.
Yeah, I actually, the thing about Howling Banshees is, I've found a little bit of success with them, just like not even putting them in a transport. Like, I think
Yeah, I like them on foot.
trying to buff their damage with Falcons or, like buff their mobility with a transport, it's not really worth it because you're spending more points and investing more points in a unit that's really not meant for damage anymore. And I think it's more
Right.
meant to kind of screen out your forces or engage or have, kind of well, yeah, just basically wait to be engaged because they do have fights first, which means if they get charged, they get to fight before your opponent.
Right. Their threat range too is rather ridiculous.
Yeah, they have really great threat range with that advance and charge. I mean, they can move 14 inches with an advance, and you could always fate
Yeah.
dice the advance roll, and then afterward you charge, 2d6. That's a big threat range. That's across the battlefield. So at any time, they can kind of transition from screening out your backfield and screening out your your
If you
D
really needed
cannons or
to,
anything.
if you really needed to, you could fate dice on that charge as well.
Oh, absolutely, man. Like throw that six in there and get a minimum 7-inch charge. Like
Right.
absolutely. That's if you roll bad. Like if you roll bad, you're getting a 7-inch charge. Like you're mostly going to be like charging pretty far. And they're infantry, so that helps. They can. It's not like they're shining spears. They can kind of just move through things and be fine. They don't have to move up and over, which is good.
Something that always gets overlooked with them, and I know I do it, everybody probably does it, is they do have shrieking pistols. They do have pistols.
Oh, dude, yeah, dude, for assault weapons, and I mean, shuriken pistols aren't terrible.
Yep.
You
Yeah, they're
know,
not
I,
the worst.
I mean, they're better than bolt pistols, right? I mean, bolt pistols are AP 0 if I'm not mistaken.
I know plenty of games though, I just don't shoot them because I just don't even
You don't even think about it.
recognize. Yeah,
Yeah, no, for sure,
just one
dude.
of those things.
You know what's funny though? I'm always excited to shoot the shuriken pistols because I want to see if I can get a
You want
win
to
with it.
get tag and kill with it.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh fuck it, I'll just shoot them. And you know, it's funny because when I used to play, like way back in the day, I know I'm sounding like an old dude now, but shuriken pistols used to be like you just never shot him because you basically had to choose between shooting and using the fleet of foot move that Eldar had back in the day. You couldn't do both, so I just never shot him. But once they made it a rule in 40k that you could shoot pistols at whatever you wanted and you could charge whatever you wanted, like you didn't have to charge the same unit you shot at. Like I was loving shuriken pistols. I was like, yeah, because I never got to use them, you know.
Right.
And now they're kind of cool. I even like painting them because you can actually
Now,
shoot them now.
tournament scene though. Tournament scene though. Do you even bother? Do you just wait? Do you waste the time?
I do it.
Yeah.
I do it. Yeah, I mean, some people wouldn't, but it's only 4 shots. You're only getting 4 shots. The X-Arc isn't going to shoot, so you roll that real quick. You say, hey, one armor save, and take it, and whatever. Sometimes that stuff actually does matter. Like I've had times where, I've weakened the unit just enough to where the Howling Banshees can then charge in and actually finish them off. You know, so I
Yeah.
think it does sometimes come into play, and on average dice, a Howling Banshee unit will probably not kill a unit of intercessors like a regular unit of Space Marines of 5. They probably won't do it unless the Exarch goes crazy with the Executioner,
Yeah.
which does happen, but not often, right? But that's the thing. Like those pistols could actually come in handy. They could
Yeah. Right.
actually
You
be the
could need them.
difference.
Could need
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
but yeah, I think
Well,
yeah, what were
the
you gonna
only
say?
other ranged weapon is the Triskel.
Oh,
Triskel.
the Triskelet. I actually
Just
don't.
go.
I don't know how to pronounce it, dude. I don't know how to pronounce anything in the Eldar Codex. I've just been,
Everybody can yell at us later.
yeah. They can rage us in the comments like, no, it's Fugan, not Fuegan. Honestly, I don't know.
I
That's how
think
I've
it's
said it
I
forever.
think that weapon I think is just pretty worthless.
It's I liked it at first in the beginning of the edition because I thought, well, you got a ranged attack. It's assault, so it's not like you can still advance and shoot it. You get three attacks at range. It hits like a power sword at range with three attacks, so that's not bad. But the melee profile just really lets it down because it's a lot of attacks, but it's at strength three. You know, so
Right.
it's like damn. It's AP -2 in combat as well. Not the greatest. Um, so yeah, I've kind of like gone away from using that as much, but I
Part of
think it's better than the mirror swords, to be honest.
Really.
Yeah, I think it's better than the mirror
Part of me
swords.
likes mirror swords because it's just falls in line with the Banshee blade. You don't got to think
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, it's
You just
it's
add three more attacks.
yeah, true. You don't have to think about it. You can roll them all at the same time, and it's like all
I
good.
kind of like that in list building sometimes just for flow.
Oh yeah, dude. Because I mean, totally. Sometimes you just have to do that because then you don't have to remember a bunch of different stuff. Like games can get messy. You have dice everywhere. You have markers everywhere. It's a lot of
Right.
stuff to keep track of. You
And
got
I know, like I'm the worst. I just empty my dice bag on the table, and there's dice all over. It's just a
oh.
mountain, and I'm like looking like a fool.
You're one of those guys. No, I
Yeah, I'm just like, oh man, no, we'll get there.
just a filthy Warhammer 40K player, man.
Yeah, tell me
Just
about your list.
filthy. Oh, dude. No, I use a little dice sack and I have it on the side. I try to be neat about it, but it never works out how you want it. Especially when you get into it. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
glad I play Eldar because if I played Orcs or something like that, man, I would not be able to hang. Like throwing all those dice out there.
right.
God, dude.
That was my only real defense on mirror swords. Executioner's definitely the way to go, though. I think that two
Yeah.
damage.
You know what I've always done with dice rolling though is I use different colored dice, so I'll have like all the Howling Banshees rolling white
Yeah,
dice and all the Exarch attacks being like green or something like that. Although some people don't
I
like
usually
that.
I usually count mine out. So like if
Yeah.
I'm running like a 10 pack of hawks, I'll just
Hmm.
have that 40 dice set aside for them
Oh
every
yeah, big
turn.
time. That way it's quick. Yeah. That's a good idea, dude. That's
And
a good
that's why
idea.
when I dump my bag, there's dice all over the place.
Well, I mean, you don't really have to worry about that about Howling Banshees because they don't really have that many attacks. I mean, three attacks is a decent number, but it's not like a ton, you know?
Proxy, how would you feel if I like stole one of your dice, but I gave you one of mine, but I didn't tell you? Because I do that to my opponent
Really,
sometimes.
you take them? I've
Sometimes.
had people do that to me all the time, man. I don't mind. I'll roll anybody's dice. I I, I like it when I
I
roll
do it after
somebody.
game. I do it after game
Oh,
on
yeah.
the
I,
sly.
I I like it when somebody does that to me because then I'll just roll really good with their own dice, and they'll be
But
like,
like
"What?" They'll get
I'll
super
be
pissed.
leaving them Eldar dice though.
Oh, that's so funny, dude. See, because I play Eldar, that'd be a blessing. I'd be like, hell yeah, all right, I'll take it. It's like my buddy used to. I had a buddy that used to play, and he was a really big Imperial Guard player, and he had special dice for Imperial Guard. Like he had like four or five of them. And I remember like one time like he did exactly that, like, you know, and I found one of his dice and he took one of my dice.
Yeah.
And like I pulled it the next game we played, I pulled it out. And he's like, "Hey, that's my dice." Like I was like, "Yeah,
Oh
you slipped it in my
yeah,
pack last time." Like and he was like, "I don't remember doing that." So I was like, "Well, now I'm going to play with it." And I used it against him, and he got so freaking salty by the end of that game that I kept rolling that dice and rolling sixes with it. Like,
I love it.
it was so funny, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like I don't have Eldar dice. Like, I didn't go out and buy them. I just have like really cheap dice. Like, I like the cheaper the better, man.
You gotta have the Eldar dice at least for your fate dice. You gotta at least use
Right,
them for your fate dice.
right. You know what? I do use other people's dice, but I'm a little superstitious about going out and buying expensive ones
I
because,
know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
well, thank you. I'll accept. I'll accept. And if they roll bad, I'll also have someone to blame.
Fair. What do you think about Banshees and the Falcon proxy?
I think they can work. I think really if you do that, you have to go the whole mile though, and you have to go with the Jain Zar. You have to add her in there or add Eldrad in there to give them bonus to
Yeah,
wound.
Eldrad. I was gonna
Like
bring up Eldrad for
like
sure.
the thing with that combo is you have to invest in it. Like if you're gonna invest in the transport, I think you have to go the extra mile and invest in Jain Zar or Eldrad, either one.
Or both.
You could have both, they just can't fit. But you could. I mean,
Well, I
you
mean,
could
you got two
Eldrad somewhere
Falcons.
else.
You got yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you could do it as a part of a coordinated strike or something like that. You could have, Howling Banshees coming out of a Falcon, via reserve, and you could have something else coming out of a Falcon as well. Because we can now come out of a
all
Falcon. Yeah,
all of that worth the points for that setup.
probably not. To be
Yeah,
honest, I wouldn't do it just because it's really fun to do. Like you'd come out of the Falcon, like maybe not out of reserve actually, because I don't even think you could charge after that, but you come
I
out
will
of the Falcon just on the board and then charge in. Yeah, it could be fun. It's a lot of points, you know.
I will say if you're running Eldrad in your list and you just so happen to want to run some Howling Banshees,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, and I actually
That
think
that
that
Eldrad combo with Banshees is pretty gnarly, I think, because
yeah.
the AP3
Well, sometimes here's the thing. Sometimes you need a unit to be able to charge something on an objective. Like you can have Wind Riders, you can have Fire Dragons, blowing up vehicles or killing things on objectives, but the question you have to ask yourself is that unit of Fire Dragons or that unit of Wraithguard or whatever you have going to then be able to charge in and finish off whatever's on there? Probably not, you know?
right?
I mean, Wraithguard have some more attacks. They could probably do it, but can Fire Dragons? No. They suck in combat. Like, you're not going to be able to kill two Space Marines on an objective with that, or you're not going to be able to kill a, Aggressor or, a Centurion on an objective. But you might be able to kill those things with Howling Banshees,
So I
with Doom.
right, yeah. So that maybe all right. Well, that's a maybe. I think Eldrad works pretty well with them. But I also wanted to compare. We talked about it a little bit, comparing the Banshees to the Harlequin troop because troop's pretty good.
Yeah, the troop is pretty good, and I think they actually are a little bit closer in ability than you might think. I think the troop really comes out on top because it has that 4+ invul,
All
so
the
it's
time.
it's a
Yeah,
yeah, it's a little bit more durable than the Banshees. Banshees are usually going to be on a 4 up only in melee versus like all the time, which does come into play. Harlequins also just they wound better, getting that +1 to wound. Wounding on threes versus wounding on fours is really big, especially when you're rerolling one wound roll and one hit roll. You also have fusion pistols with the Harlequins, so like before you charge in, you get two
true. Yeah.
fusion. You're getting two value hits, two value shots before you even charge in, and they're cheaper by 10 points. And I think,
Yeah, using that reroll on your fusion pistol probably feels a
yeah,
lot better than your shrieking pistol.
it feels, yeah, it feels a lot better. Having used Harlequins like quite a few times, like the fusion pistols, they feel good, man, when you get to fire them off, because usually, at least in my case, I usually hit at least one time, re-roll it, hit again, and then you wound on 2+ against most targets, maybe 3+ if you're going in against something tougher like Plague Marines. And having that
Now,
+1 strength is really important against a lot of stuff, or +1 to wound, I should say.
going back to Eldrad though, like Doom basically is Harlequin Assault for
Yeah,
Banshees,
I think if you're running
so
Eldrad
it's
in a
possible
list,
to kind of
I
fudge
think
that
it.
in there.
Yeah, no, no, you're right, because like +2 to wound really doesn't help you all that often. So if you have Eldrad in your list, I think Banshees might be a consideration, like, over Harlequins. Because they have the advance and charge, they have a greater threat range. They have more AP on their attacks, right?
Yeah, that AP is huge. I feel
Yeah, against anything without an invul save. Like, I know some people out there would say, well, like most things in the game have a 4+ invul, so you're only going to be at a 4+ anyway. But actually, that's actually not the case. There's a lot of units out there that just don't have it. Um, like something I was thinking about is like Necrons. There's a lot of Necron players out there right now, and Necron. Immortals, they have that toughness 5, which is hard to get around, but they don't have an invul save. They're relying on a 3 plus save. Harlequins going into that, they're going to be at a 5 up, I believe. With the Banshee Blade, they're going to be at a 3 up. So if you can get some Howling Banshees stuck into some, Immortals, you can carve through quite a bit of them. Especially if you have Doom on them, right? So you're getting +1 wounds. So you are wounding on 4s. I think that's really what it comes down to. Like, you know, then they have to be, they forced to fall back. You have to, they can't use, if they're using Hypercrypt Legion, they can't just like pop them back in reserve because they're engaged. You know, their attacks back are awful. Necrons are terrible in close combat. So your Banshees might actually be able to, destroy that whole unit. And that whole unit is way more expensive than Howling Banshees,
Right,
you know?
right.
So I think it's against some targets they're just gonna suck. Like a lot of people would look at that
Yeah,
and
for
be like,
sure.
oh well they can't go into Terminators. Well, no, because Terminators are really good in combat and they're really tough. You're gonna die. But
So everything we've kind of talked about so far seems like these roles are not good for them.
yeah,
They're okay.
yeah.
So now, kind of what I've concocted with them is their support unit, just like kind of all of our aspect warriors, right?
Yeah,
So maybe
pretty
that's
much.
how
Well,
we have
to
to
a
play.
degree. Yeah,
Like
I mean,
they're they're not gonna go kill a 5 pack of Marines. They'll go kill 3 of them or 2 of them after you shot them with something else.
right.
Know what I mean? They'll kind of combo kill something
hmm
a lot easier
Yeah,
and
I
maybe be a
think
little more
they
effective
I
that
think they
way.
have to be part of a bigger game plan. Like they have to have other units that can, kind of support them or they support other units in a way, they cover their weaknesses.
Right. So like defensively, right?
Yeah, I think Banshees are mostly a defensive unit. I think that oftentimes when we think of a close combat unit, we think of them very offensively, like how much damage they can do, what can they take out, are they going to be able to eliminate this target on an objective so that I can then score points or whatever. But there's a lot of times where having a unit that can just kind of sit back and deter opponents with a
Yeah,
melee
right.
threat is good.
I really love them as a bodyguard unit. Yeah, absolutely. Like have a little 5 pack of them by your D cannon.
Oh yeah, dude.
You don't have to leave your little D cannon alone. You don't have to leave them alone.
Absolutely, man. With the way terrain is set up, you can have 5 Howling Banshees near a D cannon be totally out of line of sight, so your opponent can't shoot them. With anything but indirect. But again, like if your opponent is shooting indirect weapons at Howling Banshees,
Yeah,
that's actually
at
might
your
be a
D
good thing.
cannon. Like
Yeah, they're leaving the D cannon alone. Like they're
right.
kind of, excuse me, they're kind of
Guess what
doing
a
their job.
D cannon shooting back to.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that it's that land raider that's moving out into the board to,
Right.
capture that objective. Man, like I've seen a lot of
I,
players running D cannons, or no, not D cannons, excuse me, land raiders in competitive play, and I just like I look at that, I'm like, man, that's just D cannon heaven right there.
I think another unit that works very well with the Banshees is just straight up fire dragons.
Yeah, they do.
Um,
They've always actually worked well because the fire dragons are short range and they really need extra protection. So like if you wanted to set it up where fire dragons come out, blow something up, like Howling Banshees can then come in
and
and
yeah,
and
then they
engage.
toast it. Yeah, they finish it there. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I
like
was wondering if maybe Dire Avengers could kind of help fill that too as an
in
interesting unit because you have
in place of fire dragons or in place of Howling
maybe
Banshees.
or also or all three together maybe.
Yeah. I think the more I think about Dire Avengers, the more saddened I am by the changes in
Oh
Phantasm.
no.
I
Oh
like
no.
them. I like them, but their damage is it's good. You're gonna get a lot of wounds on your target, but if the target's armored, they're gonna make most of their armor saves. Like I think they're really especially good against targets out in the open. Like they can do really well if a target's just out in the open, but if it's in cover, they just tend to not do so well. You know? I think actually, believe it or not, Dark Reapers are better at that. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, they can
So
punch Marines harder than
that's
Dire
a that's
Avengers
a
can.
that's a whole nother like defensive setup. I was kind of thinking was like you have Banshees, Dark Reapers, and Fire Dragons sitting on an objective. All 5 packs.
Hmm.
You're looking at about 250 points. Just straight up controlling an objective. I feel like that's kind of bargain. 250
Yeah,
points.
so check this out, right? Like you could
You
have,
got
is it 250?
seven,
Yeah,
85
I
for the
think it's,
Banshees, 80 for Reapers, 85 for Dragons.
yeah, you're right. It is that.
So like
200,
eight,
yeah.
18 wounds of aspect warriors just sitting on an objective, and you have a little bit of all the flavors.
You have the whole rainbow at your disposal, man. What can
Exactly.
an opponent possibly do against the rainbow?
And you're sitting there playing with all these cool Eldar units that nobody else plays with.
I think that's just the best part of that, you know? Like you have all the aspects, you know. I think that's so cool. I think it's sad, and you know, you see people like bringing more aspect wars, like more Dark Reapers, more different aspect wars to games, and doing well with them because actually as it happens, like a lot of these units we weren't using and that people thought were
They work so well
garbage, they
together.
actually work well together. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think definitely Fire Dragons, Howling Banshees, and Dark Reapers can work in the same list. I think,
Yeah,
you
so if you
know,
got 250 points of you don't know what to do with, there you go.
well, I mean, even check this out, right? Like, I think they actually work well together to like cap objectives, you know, that have just been taken,
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
have a situation where, okay, let's just throw out a scenario here, right? Like your opponent has just captured an objective from you. They've, you know, destroyed whatever units on it. You had rangers or whatever on it trying to screen it out. They got killed, and your opponent put some aggressors on it, right? Or your opponent puts something like kind of beefy on it. Well, what do, right? Well, you can bring up your fire dragons, dump them out of a falcon. Your dark reapers can, you know, climb a couple stories up to the top of a ruin. You know, your howling banshees can come out, and you know your fire dragons can maybe shoot that. Maybe there's a vehicle on it, a rhino or something like
Uh,
that. Shoot that thing down. Your dark reapers open fire on the unit behind. Whittle that down, you know, just enough to where the howling banshees can charge in and kill it. And then you
yeah, at
got
least
you
provoke
got
it.
you know secondaries you can score off that. You got extend enemy battle lines, um, potentially cleanse. You know, if you
Yeah,
can fire and fade something on there, if you know declare that unit a cleanse unit, quote unquote, right? So like there's a lot of play you can do there for just like you said, just around like 300 points, right?
you're kind of giving me a
200.
wild idea.
Well, do
So
tell, do
fixed
tell.
objectives, fixed objectives, right?
Hmm.
Now this is going to be Howling Banshee based somewhat. So we use Banshees, we use Harlequin Troop, we use
Yes.
Witches, and
Witches.
maybe we use Storm
We're
Guardians.
going the Yanari route now. I like it.
Yes, and maybe we use some Storm Guardians. So we got all these like little melee units, fixed objectives.
Uh huh.
We're tying up units
Yes.
everywhere, tying up units everywhere. And since these units are tied up, I feel like that'll give us a little freedom of movement on the battlefield,
Okay.
which in turn will help score these fixed objectives every turn.
Okay. So what are the fixed objectives?
Well, I guess pick your poison here.
We could
You
have
know,
deploy teleport armors. We could have
right?
behind enemy lines, right?
Yeah, yeah. Behind enemy lines, I think is the huge one because
We
you know
can
you
have
got your witches and
engage.
troops. You're gonna have your little transports,
Yeah.
and so your transports are dropping off units. So behind enemy lines, you're gonna have units back there.
Yeah. What do you think about this? That's actually an interesting
And then
concept.
so now Storm Guardians here too.
Uh huh.
Like you're moving up the battlefield, just making objectives sticky, tying up units
Mm-hmm.
with melee. But you're not even on these objectives anymore because you don't have to be.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how Storm Guardians could play in there as well.
Yeah. True. I love Storm Guardians. I'm a huge
Yeah, I
advocate.
know, I know. That's why I brought them up.
You're baiting me into a Storm Guardian conversation.
But I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
they're
you
cool.
got your Venoms,
Yeah, you
yeah,
got exactly. You
the
got Venoms
Witches,
in
you got your
there.
Venoms.
You could use a Blade Storm with the Venom. I think Yanari is you know not a lot of people play Yanari, but it's actually one of the best factions right now, just in terms of
It
win
just
rate.
seems like a super neat, like awkward Eldar melee list.
Yeah, I think that could be fun. I think Eldar melee could
You have
work
the
in
Banshees
Yunari.
on foot, and you got your troop and the witches and transports.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Storm
people
Guardians on
are.
foot.
So this is a little off topic, but people are doing well with Harlequin lists right now. Like, there's a couple of good Harlequin players that are like, placing in tournaments. Going 4-1, going the distance pretty much, or almost the distance. To basically
Right.
victory. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that somebody going to a grand tournament, you know,
Well,
necessarily like, fourth place or whatever, that's not really a loss to me. I feel like that's like a victory. So like I
well, a
think
list like that is trying to manipulate the game too. To some degree, like all melee, all fast.
right.
We're manipulating the melee phase.
Yeah, changing expectations, because people they
Right.
think
That's
Eldar
how
are
we're
the
going to control the game.
yeah, they think meta, they think D cannons, they think, Avatar
Right.
King.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I think that's probably how the Harlequins are doing so well.
Yeah. And also, I mean, they're just like some of those Harlequin players are really good. They know how to position the units correct.
Oh yeah, they're
You
die
know,
hard. All die
they've
hard.
oh yeah, dude, like for sure. Like they played Quins in ninth edition and just racked with them.
Yeah, oh
Remember
yeah,
remember when Quins had like a 70+% win rate? Remember that?
yeah. It was disgusting.
Oh, it was horrible, dude. Like, but you only had a couple of people doing it though. That was the funny thing. Like, not a whole lot of people played the army. Like,
Right.
that's funny, man. I think Quins are cool. I think Quins are cool. I think Howling
So
Banshees and Quins kind of like a lot of people
yeah,
might
that's
not
what
agree,
I
but
think.
I think they
I
could
think
work
too.
pretty much the same.
In tandem. Yeah, they can work in
Yeah,
tandem together.
yeah. I'm curious. I'm gonna check something real quick because we haven't talked about Jain Zar yet. I'm gonna check her
No,
out
right, right.
because she is
She's pretty
well,
gnarly.
she's kind of cool. She's kind of cool. I wish she was better, but she is kind of on the cheaper side. Here she is.
Yeah, is it?
Here's that crazy bitch. I would not want to get on her wrong side, man. Could you imagine? Fuck.
Yeah, not a shot.
Oh shit, man. Like,
Ranged weapons, the silent death.
I
Not
mean,
bad.
they probably could have come up with a better name for that,
Yeah.
considering its implication among us humans, us Monkai, but um it's pretty good, man. I mean, the only
It's not bad
downside I
for what
think
it is.
is its damage 1, which is like what the hell? Like, well, why isn't it damage
Yeah, it's a
2?
Phoenix Lord.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's kind of lame, but I mean, other than that, you have the Blade of Destruction. You have 6 attacks at damage 2, strength 6, AP -3. Hits on 2s, that's
Yeah.
really good. Then you have the sweep, which is also good. So if you're going against like, softer targets, it's not bad.
So I like her too with the sweep there because it's the same profile. Same profile as
It has the Banshee
the
blade,
Banshee
man.
Blade. Yeah, exactly.
So you guys
So you
roll them
don't
all.
gotta
Well,
no
no.
throw it
Well,
all together.
actually, yeah, you could
Yep,
because it's
we're
add
hitting
1
on
to the hit roll.
twos.
Yeah, everything's
Yeah,
hitting
we're
on
all hitting
twos
on
too.
twos, baby. And then you got a
It's
million
just
attacks with your
It's
Banshees.
like you don't care if it's better or not. You're just rolling them all the same anyway. You're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna roll them all together.
Yeah.
They're all
And
strength 4.
everything's AP3.
Oh, dude,
Slapping.
that just slaps, man. Yeah, I mean, I guess like she could be like pretty good, like with the Banshees. I mean, the Banshees hit a lot harder with her, that's for sure.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Like, I mean, we could sit here and have the argument of, oh, it's not cost effective and stuff like that. But realistically, if you're just using it as a hammer unit to like hammer a unit of aggressors or kill them or whatever, I don't know the exact math behind that because I've never tried hitting aggressors with Howling Banshees with Jain Zar. But out of a Falcon, I'm pretty sure they can kill them. A pack of 3 aggressors are toughness 6, so
I mean, Jain Zar can produce 18 dice a turn. That's a lot.
yeah, it's a lot of shots, a lot of attacks. Between the shooting and the combat. Yeah, she's good. I mean, the Whirling Death ability sucks, but
Does it though?
it kind
I
of sucks. Well, this is why, right? Because this is my reasoning, like behind it, is the Howling Banshees. There's the threat of heroic intervention, but you don't ever want to actually use it. You want to just threaten your opponent with it so that you never actually have to do it. Because the thing is like if okay, for example, right? Your opponent's coming in with a melee unit, maybe some like assault intercessors, some jetpack assault intercessors, whatever. They have a bead on your D cannon, They have fly, so they're flying over your shit, so you can't screen them out. Your D cannon's there. Maybe they have an 8-inch charge on it, and they go for it. Your Banshees can heroically intervene, right? So you just tell your opponent, oh, they just letting you know they can heroically intervene and they have power weapons. Your opponent has to weigh up whether or not he actually thinks, he or she actually thinks that the D cannon can realistically die in one combat phase, and
Right.
they can also survive the Howling Banshees. So maybe your opponent doesn't go for that because you have 5 Howling Banshees there. So you save your D cannon. But if you have to use that heroic intervention with Howling Banshees, that's 2 command points, right?
I feel like if you're playing Jain Zar, you have to roll a 10
I
pack,
feel
right?
if you're playing,
Once
you
you get
have
in a
to either
Falcon
roll a
game.
10 in a Wave Serpent or you got to roll them 6 in a Falcon. Like that's just or
No.
5 in Jain Zar. And I feel like in both of those cases you can't heroically intervene, so that ability
Yeah.
is kind of just wasted, you know. But I mean,
Yeah.
theoretically,
What
if you
about Jain Zar solo with the ability?
see now,
Is that like the best
that's
version?
interesting. That's interesting because she can actually do it herself. Yeah, so
Right.
she's pretty cool. She's a good model. I just think that running her solo might work. The problem is she's kind of expensive. I mean, she's more expensive than Banshees. So there is that.
Yeah. Phoenix Lord solo. I like Karandras solo better than Jain Zar.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Well, he's more aggressive, right? Like he has more
So
he just does more, right? He just hits harder.
He hits harder than a 5 pack of Scorpions by themselves. I'm not sure Jain Zar hits harder than a 5 pack of Banshees by themselves.
Yeah, I don't think she does. I don't think she does for the same reason that you stated about her basically having the same profile that Howling Banshees do, right?
Right.
Like she hits about as hard as 3 Howling Banshees with the sweep, and with the Blade of Destruction, she hits pretty much on par to the Exarch. A little bit better than the Exarch, obviously, but not by that much. She might get an extra kill, you know? But yeah, I mean, really what it is, you're paying a lot of points for this Whirling Death ability, which isn't that good.
Right.
I wish it
Right.
was better, but it's not. The weird thing is I don't know why she has this. I know that the designers probably thought, well, we want a way for Howling Banshees to be able to use their Fights First ability, but they're
I'd rather
super
them
fragile.
always advance 6 or something.
Yeah, that would be way better. If she had always advanced 6, that'd be so much better, dude.
Right, that'd be wild.
I wish she had that, but she doesn't. Cahandras is good too. There's so many. I mean, there's a couple of lists that have been circulating around, like competitive play, just running a bunch of Phoenix Lords and a bunch of characters because they do hit really
Yeah.
hard and
Yeah,
they're really
exactly.
easy to hide. Like if you look at the abilities of Cahandras, like if he's coming out of a Falcon, he's getting he's hitting on a 2+ first of all, but every time he charges, a roll of a 4+ scores a critical.
He's such value too, like
Yeah,
25 more points from your Scorpion squad, you get
yeah, just a
Karandras.
bunch
Like,
of
okay.
melee. Yeah, he's so good, dude. I mean, strength 8 means he's wounding Marines on twos with this, the Aura's Bane.
Yeah.
He has sustained 1, but 4 pluses score a critical, so you're getting about half of those being sustained.
I don't know if you've ever ran him solo, but I have a few times, and it is a riot.
Well, tell me about that
Because
a little bit.
he's just a dirty little man. He just runs around, ties up your little 5 pack units,
Yeah.
usually kills them,
Uh-huh.
and he's just kind of tough to kill anyways because he's a Phoenix Lord,
Hmm.
small base, you know.
Right. And he has devastating wounds that he could just
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
dev
prop,
wounds for yeah,
even on vehicles. Like you could
yeah.
charge him into a land speeder and probably kill it.
Or I would also run him with Ass Man, just running around wreaking havoc.
Yeah, that's funny. I haven't talked about him in a while, Zerman, but he's pretty good. The old ass man. Let's check him out. He's one of those characters that I think really got hit hard by that Phantasm nerf again, but he's cool. I just didn't like how they made him more points too. But he's the only one with a 3-up invul, so there's that.
Yeah, the three pinballs naughty.
I mean, he can Overwatch for free himself, I guess, right? But problem is he doesn't hit on fours, hits on sixes. He needs to be with his unit for sure for that. And I think Phantasm just kind of
He's
messed
so
up.
good in melee, though. He's so good in melee too,
He
though.
is, man. Just straight up damage 3, devastating wounds. Like that's great. No, he's good. I think he's good. I don't know why they had to increase the points on him. That was so confusing to me. It's almost like
I
they
killed Balrog once with the sermon 1v1.
you killed what with a Zerman?
Balrog or not Balrog? Is that that big ass Bellacore? That's
Bellacore.
the
I was
name.
gonna say you shall not
Not Balrog,
pass. What is he, Gandalf? I mean, hey, I
but
mean
it was disgusting. It was absolutely gross. I rolled hot, but
that's
he
awesome.
just
Yeah, you could definitely
took him
kill.
out.
You
I
can
was like,
definitely kill him.
okay,
Yeah, roll a bunch of devastating wounds.
yeah. I think he had like 9 or 10 wounds left, and the sermon just went up and just took him down.
Yeah,
Like I have so much fun playing with him.
that's funny, man. That's funny. We're gonna have to talk about him and Dire Avengers in a future video, but
For sure.
all right. Well, I'll let you go for this time around. But yeah, Howling Banshees. Use them in your games because they're cool. They're a great unit. You just have to know how to use them right. I think. Are they the most competitive unit? Probably not. I think their points need to drop before we can start to see them in more competitive situations because
Definitely.
I think they are a little bit expensive for what they do. But 70 points, 75 points for them, I think you could start seeing them in lists. You know, like as a cheap kind of screening unit. 75 points, about the same as a troop
Uh,
or striking scorpions at that point.
Yeah, I think that'd be way more comfortable fielding them then.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
I do want to hear everybody else's thoughts on them.
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody's gonna say they're trash, but I want to know how we could use them.
I mean, of course, right? Like, here's the thing. Like, people are always going to think they're trash because they haven't really been used in competitive play and they don't hit as hard as before. No, I get it. I don't, I really do think they need a points drop, like, for them to be considered competitive, like, highly
Yeah,
competitive. But I think you
right.
can make them work in a regular list, and I think they could still be good. You just need to have an idea of how to use them in your list and that's not always going to be just purely dealing damage. It's going to be a denial thing, denying enemy, your opponent ground, making your opponent choose between charging in, losing their unit, charging that D cannon, but then losing that unit in return, you know?
Yeah, I think kind of like how everybody's just kind of figuring out how to use the different aspect warriors
hmm
again. Currently, I mean, maybe Banshees will finally get kind of figured out a little bit
Yeah, I think
here.
so. I think so. And I think, next time there's a balance legislate, I think hopefully we see some, point readjustments between different units, but we'll see.
Yeah, we've been naughty.
Yeah, well, whoever wrote our index was obviously not thinking about some of the crazy combinations that the Eldar community,
I
could
want to
come
know
up
what they
with.
were smoking.
Yeah, I know, right? Like,
Yeah,
well, they had fun with Eldar. Let's just put it that way. They had fun with the Eldar.
that's for sure.
They had fun with them. And then, of course, when they sobered up, they wrote the rules for the Shadow Seer and stuff like that. They wrote the terrible data sheets. That's like, I don't like the Shadow Seer personally. I know some people like her, but I think she sucks, man. But anyway, people have
Hey,
their different opinions.
oh, here's the Warp Hunter.
The Warp Hunter's fun. We need to talk about that in another video too. So many
Why
fun units.
you only ever make me talk about the bad units?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, well, because you'll use them. That's why I talk to you about them because I know you'll use them in your games, just like me. Like
That's
I
fair.
like
That's
I'm not
fair.
gonna have somebody on here who's just gonna be like, oh, they suck. I've never used them. It's like, oh, we have nothing to talk about then, really. I mean, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, you're an experimenter, dude. You'll throw
I,
out random bullshit and see if it sticks. I mean, you're the guy who likes to run what 3 Autark Wayleapers. Just
Yeah,
in
it's
a
fun.
pack
It's
together,
fun
dude.
being weird.
Yeah, that's fun, man. I know
Or like
you have to
the
try it.
entire like deep strike list.
That's something cool that you like
Like
is definitely needed.
half the list is like infiltrate, the other half is deep strike and reserves.
That's so cool. Like just have like triple Mandrake, triple Hawk. Just I mean, there's
Yep.
lists like that are circulating competitive play. Just Unari lists that are like going nuts with a bunch of like deep strike, infiltrate. Score a bunch of objectives. Focus down targets with just a bunch of attacks. Like it's working. It's working.
I noticed I tried doing like fixed objectives that way, but I noticed
Hmm.
that it's very time consuming to run MSU with Eldar like that.
Yeah, dude.
So
I,
time consuming. And like
that's true.
sometimes especially competitively, if you have an opponent that's kind of like that guy,
Hmm. He'll
like he'll
clock
be
you
like,
out.
oh, you're deep striking there, and just like measure your balls off because
Yeah,
you're trying to deep strike 8 units
right.
at
And
once,
run.
you know.
Then you'll run out of time. Yeah, that
Exactly.
happens.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
happens, man. Yeah, you have to really be on top of it with that kind of list and really just focus in. And also you have to have cool opponents that are not gonna, dick you around like that. The good news
Right.
is I don't think there's a lot of that anymore. I think that's going
No,
away because
I only say that because it happened to me. And it's like,
really,
yeah,
recently,
no, it was like last year, but
uh,
it was one of those things where it's like we both know they're deep striking 9 inches away or over 9 inches from your stuff. We
hmm,
both know that.
yeah,
So why are you gonna sit here and argue with me for 5 minutes over a millimeter?
yeah, that's creepy, dude. Anytime
Right?
somebody
Like,
does that, it's like you're really way into winning. Like I get it, it's a tournament, but who cares? Like, what do you get at the end of it?
right? Yeah.
I mean, you're not winning $1 million, so who cares? Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah, no, it's no problem, dude. I mean, as long as you have fun, that's what matters.
no, no,
Like
exactly. But no, I think those lists are super neat,
they
super
can
cool.
they can be very cool. Like, but
Triple
yeah,
Way
they can
Libra.
be tough. Triple Way Libra, dude, try it, dude. You've already probably tried it a couple times, but
I have.
we should we should talk about that
This,
next
yeah, that
video,
was
dude.
part of that deep strike list. Triple Way Leaper, Triple Hawk,
We definitely need to talk about that, man. Like deep strike, how to
Triple
build a
Warlock,
pure
Triple
deep
Warlock on
strike.
foot, Triple Warlock on foot,
That's funny, man. That's really funny.
just creeping.
Creeping up that win rate, dude. We need to get that Eldar win rate up, dude. I think triple Autark is gonna be it, man.
Triple Warlock on foot.
Oh man, I
Change your
actually,
life.
Loki, I actually think that would mess up a lot of players. I think a
Oh,
lot
they're
of
so
players would
quick.
look at some
They're so
bullshit like that
fast.
and be like, "What the hell am I gonna do against this?" You're just like deep strike in their like corner in the back and just be lone up and be like, "Okay, well I have all my blobs in the center. I guess I can't do anything."
like a little jet bike. He's so fast.
Yeah, he's cool, man. Cool model too. I like the new like Autark model. Looks awesome.
Oh, the Autark. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you go this time around, but we'll have to, talk again about different stuff. We'll have to talk about that deep strike list and about the Warp Hunter and about all sorts of
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy
Oh,
Eldar
yeah.
shit.
I always be concocting crazy, weird shit.
That's the best. That's the best thing, dude. That's the best. All right.
Yep.
Well,
You'll be
um,
around.
I'll be around probably later, and thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys next time. If you do want to support the channel, I have Patreon free trials activated, which will give you permanent access to our Discord community. Come in and talk to, Dead of Night, to me, to a lot of other Eldar players who love talking about, strategies and tactics. And I'll leave that in the description for you guys. And have a great one, everybody. Peace out.
See you.